we do have to look at a little bit the negative from last night, unfortunately. And the negative has a name, and his name is Taijuan Walker. And so I know that I have been the truther, the Turnbull truther this entire season, and I will continue to be one. I will continue to be the Turnbull truther. And I know that when Ranger Suarez got hurt and looked like a badass, by the way, taking that ball 106 miles per hour off the bat onto his arm, a nice little nonchalant throw to first to get the out, and then he comes out of a game. People are paranoid. They're panicked. Is Ranger Suarez going to miss significant time? Sounds like he could be back in the rotation for this upcoming weekend in London. So there is a chance that he is not nearly as injured. It was just a contusion. There's no fracture. There's no break. There's no significant time expected to be missed by Ranger Suarez. People thought, hey, that's the opening potentially for Spencer Turnbull to make his way into the rotation. But I just want to throw out there that, like, since it looks like Suarez is fine, can somebody please fire Taijuan Walker into the sun? Please. I've gotten the feedback all weekend when I threw that out there.
Well, Russ, you have to understand that Taijuan Walker, his main purpose and why the Phillies continue to throw him out there here in these May games and now June is because his main objective is to eat some innings for the Phillies. And they're winning a lot of games elsewhere, so you don't necessarily have to get better pitching out of that number 5 starter or whatever is exactly Taijuan Walker's supposed to be. But I think in our hearts and in our minds, we know he's the number 5 starter. Just got to eat some innings. Just got to eat him up. Turnbull can't do that. He's on like an innings limit, and it's going to be a problem. You can't have that. Can't have that. You got to ride Taijuan Walker into the fall, and then right before the postseason, you're going to put Turnbull back into the rotation. It's all going to be hunky-dory. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Taijuan Walker, the only reason he is in the starting rotation right now is certainly not because of merit. It's not because of what he did last year. It's not even what he's done so far this year, because in fairness, what he's done this year has been horrendous. This isn't even like a subjective opinion. He has been dreadful for the Phillies this year. And at some point, as I've done multiple times, you can call me out for being a hypocrite when I am a hypocrite, but in this case, I am certainly not. The only reason he's in the rotation right now isn't just to be some innings eater. It's because he's got a big contract, and they don't want to have to admit defeat on the deal. I think they were hoping that, hey, after 2-3 starts, maybe he gets into a rhythm. Maybe he pitches, decently, a low 4s ERA. But that ain't happening, homie. That ain't happening at all. And in a season where you've seen Turnbull go out and start and look fantastic, to a point where people said, hey, don't mess this up. Don't put Taijuan Walker back into the rotation. Turnbull's doing very well. And even Christopher Sanchez, who's had a fantastic start to the season. And we all know what Ranger Suarez has done. We all know what Aaron Nola has done, what Zach Wheeler has done this year. Taijuan Walker is the weak link in this rotation. And while, yes, you could make the case that game in and game out, this team has the chance to win each and every game because they are just that much better than the opposition, it is still fair to request, to demand more of that 5th starter. Or if you want to call him the number 4, whatever the hell you want to call Taijuan Walker. I call him the number 7 starter, but here we are, okay? You have to be able to have the ability as a fan to say, hey, this isn't good enough. When the rest of the rotation is putting up legitimate numbers, and I checked out Big Bet Bob's Red October newsletter, which I would, recommend you subscribe to if you're a Phillies fan. He kind of pulled up what ESPN is doing. They have a Cy Young predictor formula. And right now, the top 3 candidates for the NL Cy Young are Ranger Suarez, Aaron Nola, and Zach Wheeler. They put it together. It's kind of complicated. Innings pitched, earned runs, strikeout saves, wins, losses. Ranger Suarez leads the way with 98.7 points. Aaron Nola, 73.9 points. And Zach Wheeler at 71 points. They've been fantastic. Christopher Sanchez has been really, really good. Like, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least highlight the fact that, like, when you go back to the 4 aces plus average Joe Blanton, right, that rotation, I don't think Roy Oswalt ever really blew anybody's doors off the way that, like, he had when he was an ace with the Astros. But, like, you'd get back to it and you'd say, hey, you know what? If Joe Blanton goes out and has, like, a decent enough game, eats some innings for you, you're fine. That was because you expected there are 4 aces and average Joe. Here, the expectation was, okay, Zach Wheeler is going to be your stone-cold ace. Aaron Nola is going to have ace stuff, but is kind of in and out all the time mentally with whether or not he actually can be an ace or not. And then you thought, like, hey, what could Ranger Suarez be? And then it was like, all right, Christopher Sanchez, like, who knows? Like, as long as he can put up some decent innings, he can put up, like, moderately fine numbers, you'll be able to be somewhat in contention in the NL East. And everybody favored the Braves going in. All the sports books did. All the pundits did. Like, this is how it went. As the Braves have fallen off, obviously because of significant injuries, and they're going to probably continue to fall off, even though I still think they have a good all-around team, the expectation here has changed. And the performance of 4 of your starters, plus Turnbull, to this point have been so good that it's okay to say, hey, we are changing expectations. We're going from saying, be a competitive team in the NL East and likely compete for one of the wild card spots to, hey, with the Braves effectively out of it, right? Or far back enough that, like, you really, not that you have to fall on your face, but, like, you're far enough ahead of the Braves right now where you should feel pretty okay about experimenting with a couple of things from time to time. The expectations have changed where it's not like, hey, you're gunning for the Braves. Now it's, hey, you're gunning to be on top of the National League and to hold off everyone else. You're now competing potentially for home field advantage throughout the postseason. And I know it's still, like, early in the season because baseball has way too many games in a season, but it's still fair to say, hey, now you're looking at how do we stack up against the best in the National League, not the NL East. And to this point, the Phillies have shown that they can be just as good, if not better, than any team in the National League. And you could say, hey, the Brewers are having a nice season because they are. Or you could say, hey, the Dodgers are having a really good season and they're right on your heels for the best record in the National League. And that's fine. You have to remember, once again, the Dodgers came into this season with the expectation of being a World Series contender, with being a team that not only could make the World Series, but it would be a failure for them to not make the World Series. A team that went out and got Shohei Ohtani. A team that went out and outbid you, in theory, or at least put up a competitive enough offer for Yoshiyama Yamamoto, that, like, they put the pedal to the metal. They put together what is considered by many to be like an all-star team of sorts. Your expectations should have changed and probably have changed. And if you're the Phillies, now it comes down to how do we put ourselves in position not to be in contention to win every 5th game or to win 4 out of 5 games. How do we put a team in contention to potentially have a chance every game? And Taijuan Walker is not that guy. Now, if you want to try to make a case, and I would love for the people who are watching on YouTube and on Facebook and on X right now, if there is a Taijuan truther out there, by all means, wander into the comments section and let me know why I'm wrong. But Taijuan Walker is not that guy. And in fairness, I don't think he's ever shown that he can be that guy. I just don't. And Taijuan is bad. Opponents right now are hitting .302 against him this season. He's got a 1.59 whip. He's horrific. And don't expect me to be somebody who's going to, like, try to make all kinds of, like, exit velocity arguments. That's not me. That's not my jam. Okay? But right now, his expected ERA for the year is over 6. That's bad. I think we can all agree that's bad. An expected ERA of over 6 puts him in the bottom 4% of all pitchers in baseball. He's that bad. So for as great as Ranger Suarez has been, what a revelation he's been, what a Cy Young contender he's been, for as great as Zach Wheeler has been for much of the season, again, potentially in Cy Young conversation, for as great as Aaron Nola has been by the numbers, you might say Cy Young contention, but you'd say, like, very, very good. Some people might say Cy Young contention. For as good as Christopher Sanchez has been, given the low expectations, you cannot continue to trot Taijuan Walker out there because he's either going to, quote-unquote, eat innings, which he doesn't really do a great job of, or because he's got this big bloated contract and you don't want to have to either DFA him, send him down, or have him rot in the bullpen to be a long relief guy. Like, I don't know what we're doing here. But again, by all means, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but maybe you think I am. I want to go back over to Joey B. Joey B saying, good morning over on YouTube. Hello, Joey. Joe Papel, another Joe, checks in. We love Joe Papel. Hi, Russ, exactly. Stay ahead of the Dodgers and Yankees for home field throughout. And that's the other thing, too. You know, I make all these cases from the vantage point, through the lens of the National League and how it matters within your own league. But, like, let's talk about Major League Baseball as a whole. The Yankees are virtually at the same point record-wise. They have an additional win. They're 42-19. The Phillies are 41-19 entering today's games. And even the Guardians. Guardians are having a really good year, 39-20. I am honestly shocked looking at that to see just how good they've been. But you're in a competition here for the best record in baseball, for the best record in the National League. You have to execute at a high level, and Taijuan Walker is not the guy to help you get there. So hopefully at some point, someone will figure it out. And at some point, hopefully, they will abide by that long-held adage, a very good business adage, that sunken costs shouldn't factor into future expenditures. Just because you sunk a lot of money into this guy doesn't mean you have to ride or die with him for the rest of the season. You don't. There's nothing to hold you to it. And by the way, if you really are worried, like if the narrative out there that the Phillies might be worried about Turnbull's innings for the season, if they're really concerned about how many innings he really has in his arm, and there is this thought that maybe late in the season they could look to kind of bring him back into the rotation and have a steady arm down the stretch, I don't love that. But if that's the thought they're going to go with, then the only other logical place to go after that is, all right, when the trade deadline comes up, find another quality rotation arm to replace Taijuan Walker, at least in the interim. I said going into the season that I still, I said going into the season, I thought a month into the season, team still needs another top-end starter. Maybe it won't be an ace, but maybe like a really solid number 2. And I will, I guess, come back to this point that while I think the Phillies rotation has been incredible, which it has, except for Taijuan Walker, eventually players regress to the mean. And so eventually some of the lights out starts that you've seen from a Ranger Suarez or from a Christopher Sanchez or really, really good, consistent performance that you've seen from Wheeler or Nola, you're not going to get that every time out. If you do, you're talking about an all-time record-setting season, and right now they're on pace for that in franchise history. However, you also have to be open to the idea that, like, hey, eventually guys do kind of come back to their norms. And even if they have an elevated season, if they have a better season, the best season of all time for them, the likelihood of that happening for 4 starting pitchers in the same rotation at this point, probably not exactly high. So you can't rest on your laurels, and you have to constantly look for how do we get better. And right now, the most glaring position on this team, the most glaring hole, is Taijuan Walker's spot in the rotation.